And I'm about to record here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all on behalf of the Chamber. I welcome you on the next series of Lunch and Learn. Today we'll be talking about adjusting to the new normal. So Dr. Lori here will go ahead and go more in depth. But before that, just some simple housekeeping rules here. Make sure as you start to come in, just make sure you mute yourselves, so that way there's no feedback or anything that disrupts the presentation. Also, make sure as you join in, put in your contact information in the chat, so that way everyone else who's all here in the webinar. And then we will go ahead and answer any questions on coming from the chat box too. So make sure you enter in any questions. Valerie here, also with Y2 Collab, will go ahead and answer, help Dr. Lori here answer questions. We'll also have a Q&A session towards the end, so if any questions have been missed, we'll make sure to answer those there. But we will go ahead and get started. Dr. Lori, I'd like for you to take it away here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm so excited to be here with everyone. It's a weird time for all of us, so this is probably going to be, hopefully going to be a really relative topic that we're going to be talking about today. Just a little about myself, and then I'll also introduce Valerie, who's here with me today. But I am the co-owner of the We2 Collab in North Phoenix. We are a business collaboratory where we specialize in small and medium-sized businesses. I am an industrial psychologist, and that title and $5 will buy you a cup of coffee. But what it does do is it helps us to help businesses, not just the title, but the work we do in the collab. I've been doing, as an industrial psychologist, I've been doing this work since 2010, I guess. It's been a long time. You start dating yourself. And we were laughing earlier that I got my bachelor's degree at the University of Dubuque. So thank you, Bobby, for being here to represent them. And just a very small world.
It is a small world.
We provide the business owners with the trusted resources they need to move them from where they're at today to where they're going. And so and I'm even talking micro businesses, 1 person, 2 people, to smaller boutique businesses, 3 or 4 people, all the way up to a medium-sized business. We usually sit down with the business owners and say, okay, where are you at today and where do you need to be? And we'll see some of that coming up here in just a little bit. We also partner with several universities to grow doctors who want to be future industrial psychologists, HR consultants, and management consultants. So a part of our business is really looking at new people who want to be consultants and helping them grow in their own businesses also. So basically creating our own competition between each other. It's an odd business model, but it seems to work. I'd like to also introduce Valerie Serrano. She is our liaison to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and she is also our Director of Marketing and Community Relations. And so she's here with us today. Wave, Valerie.
Good morning, good afternoon now.
Yeah, she's actually going to be part of the helpful partner with me throughout this project. So I think at the end, it'll be revealed to you what we will be offering, maybe some of you, at the end of the session. So be excited. Take away something from the session that I always say, if you're in this session, look for 2 or 3 things that you want to take away. We call that pre-thinking in our world. And if you think about 2 or 3 things you want to take away, you can ask better questions. So welcome to everyone. We're honored to be here with you. As you have questions, I think Elizabeth said that Valerie will be answering questions. I would encourage everybody to get out a piece of paper and a pencil. If you're driving, please don't do that. But if you're at your desk, please do that. And what we want to do is, I believe in interactivity during the session. So hopefully you won't have to listen to me the whole time. You'll be actually doing some of the work. So again, welcome. So new normal. I can tell you, each one of you can document in the chat feature how many times you've heard this new terminology. But I believe this term will define this point in our time, in our history. This has never happened in, I think 9/11 we hold in a little bit, but nothing like the business disruption that's happened now and the pivoting that's had to occur. So there will be a new day or a new normal. And so we all hear that. We can't give you dates, we can't give you times, it may come slowly. But for a business owner, planning time is now. What I'd like you to do is take a moment to think about how things have changed in the next 90 days for you. On a piece of paper in front of you, write 3 to 5 ways in which you have what we're going to call pivoted. That means you were this and now you're that, or you were open and now you're not. So how have you pivoted in the last 90 days? And then next to each one of those items, I'd like you to write an emotion associated with it. And if you're comfortable, post a few words on the chat feature so we can see it. So hopefully you've gotten a few things on your sheet of paper. Now keep that paper in front of you because we're going to look at it again in just a few minutes. All right, this is a business model that the We2 Collab has put together for this season. And it can be for any season. It could be unexpected business disruption, such as I'm out of money, or it could be another business disruption as your clients all go away and now you have to reestablish yourself. So I'm going to walk you through this, and then we're going to walk through each piece individually. First, we were business as usual, and we call that BAUS. And in that business as usual, we were really comfy. Think about your comfort zone, warm, fuzzy, all that. It was stable, it was consistent, it was predictable, it was well established, it was habitual, successful. In most cases, business as usual had incremental change, which means that we would tweak things here or there, or we might, if you're a restaurant, you might offer a new menu item or an outdoor seating or something. We call that incremental change. And Valerie and I were talking back and forth on this about the types of change that happened in each stage. So we're going to not present all the topic of change because we could spend another hour doing that. But we wanted to just begin to introduce the thoughts about the change. So you see an arrow at the bottom going to the business as unusual, and we've labeled that BAUN, unusual. And sometimes we have an opportunity to plan for business as unusual, but for this season, we have not. What happens is each of us in some ways had to pivot our businesses in order to survive. This causes instability, inconsistency. You have an unpredictability in the things that you're doing, and then the need for survival. And we'll talk about more about that in a few minutes. Then as you emerge from this, it's like a butterfly out of the cocoon. As you emerge through this, you're going to have some transformative change and some new learning. The thing that most business owners are struggling with right now is planning for the new normal. The new normal is going to be some form of business as usual with business as unusual. And in that planning state, a leader of a business really needs to understand, how am I doing things in a new way with new business capabilities, employee capabilities, and new policies and procedures. So we've created this model to begin our thinking around creating a new normal, because the whole goal is to take the new normal back into business as usual at some point in the future. So here's what we know. Let's start with business as usual. it is gone. If you're mourning the fact that your business will no longer be what it was, it's going to be normal for all of us to be mourning that process. But again, everything's stable, consistent. You all know where you were at before this disruption happened. In many cases, we just went through our day-to-day, hiring the same people, doing the same things, and not thinking much about how we were going to move us into the future. Now, you may have your strategic plan that you've been doing every year, but that strategic plan is also a thing of the past. So how do you begin to think forward when you're in the midst of crisis? So what we do know is business as usual is gone and business as unusual is here. That instability of how you used to do things in your business, you may have had to furlough some people. You may have had to actually let people go because you know your business will never go back to where it was. There's disruptive change going on, and disruptive change is unpredictable change. It's change that is unfamiliar. You have no idea how to do the next thing. You're just modeling maybe after another business that's similar to yours and what they're doing. We're going to look at the restaurant industry here in a little bit and how they pivoted almost immediately. In business as unusual, there are short-term solutions that may become long-term solutions. Short-term solutions, it's really interesting. Valerie and I have a client who is a very large facility, and there's a lot of people within that facility and who live in their own houses or their own locations. But the company started a food bank on Wednesdays. And so they were using their buying power from the restaurants they had on site and went into and put it into practice in a food bank. They're nonprofit, so they used some of their development funds to start it. And it's been going on now for 9 weeks or 8 weeks. Now, they're going to have to think about, as they move from this business as unusual into business as usual, or sorry about that, into the new normal. How do we keep that? Do we delete it? I mean, people are already in the habit of coming. There's lines of people. So there's some things that you're looking at as short-term solutions right now that you're going to have to take into the new normal. There's elevated emotions. You've probably seen emotions from people around you that you've never seen before. There's lack of safety. Of course, we're all on this unstable ground right now. There's a need to survive, an instinctual need to survive. And there's also some blame that may happen. No, I didn't do that, but they did it, in order to keep our jobs, in order to do things. And the biggest thing there is right now is fear. And most of these items you're either feeling, felt, or may have attached to, wrote down next to the things that you're experiencing today on your sheet of paper. There's hundreds of other emotions. We picked the top emotions. When you're in this state, psychologically, it is difficult to think about next steps, the move forward. What does a new normal look like? We work with a lot of organizations and organizational leaders who are going, I don't even know. I don't even know how to plan for that. And unfortunately, the lack of planning will translate in the lack of ability to thrive in the new normal. There are things that need to happen for organizations, and that's basically our role. Is we play the role of the objective person who'll sit in the room and kind of take you there. If you've ever looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if not, write that down on your piece of paper. That's where we're at right now. If you look at the hierarchy of needs, when you're in safety, when you need to make sure that you're trying to save your business, we're at the lower levels of that continuum, of that triangle. And the top of the triangle is self-actualization, and that's where you probably were when you were in business as usual. And that's just been, our knees were knocked out from under us, and then now we need to make some changes. As you have questions, please post those in the chat. It will help, and then Valerie can answer some of those questions. What we know now, so we know that business as usual is gone. We know that business as unusual is here. You know, you've watched, we were talking earlier, but you've watched a lot of the universities pivot to an online format. And there were some universities that were much more adept at it than others. New normal, but what we do know is a new normal is coming. We just can't tell you when it's coming. And this is more transformative change. So we've seen some incremental change in our business as usual. We've seen some disruptive change that causes all kinds of things in the business as unusual. Now we know that a lot of organizations are going through transformative change. That means that we're moving from one type of business to another. We're moving from one type of service to another. We're moving employees from one type of employee to another type of employee. We know that the beauty of the new normal and the disruption is that there are new learning. There is some new learning. There are new solutions that are happening. It's the most creative and innovative time in most businesses. And we wouldn't have had an opportunity to experience that unless this type of disruption happened. There's actually some excitement for what the new normal has in store. But at the same time, on that same continuum, there's trial and error. We have to give ourselves the opportunity to fail. Failing is extremely important to learning. So we shouldn't ever not want to fail, because failure is that piece that helps you to change. There's chaos in the new normal because you don't know how to do the new things you're being asked to do. There's grief and loss. This is really where you begin as a business owner, your employees, everyone around you begins to experience some grief and loss that's happening. This grief is similar to someone dying in a family or getting a divorce. There's this letting go of what was and anticipating what's going to be. And there's this lost period that absolutely happens. And if you're experiencing that today, know that that is normal for you to experience. But in all of it, I always say in business, if you have hope, although hope is not a strategy, a business strategy, if you have hope, there's an opportunity for things to turn around, for you to do new things. Maybe they're uncomfortable, but as long as there is hope, we can begin to ask for help and to move forward. So we know the new normal is coming. Here's some of the things that we do in our work at the We2 Collab. We help to do some strategic planning. But this new normal absolutely requires new strategic planning, which is needed to redefine the new business that will eventually become the new business as usual. And that's the goal. It's how do we get through this season to the next? Some of this planning explores new business capabilities. And those new business capabilities we've seen, as I talked about the food bank in the one client we're with. It's in some of the restaurants. How am I going to now change my business capabilities to be more takeout than dine in? How do we all, especially in I use the restaurant industry because it's easy because we're all seeing it right now. But in my restaurant, I had 30 tables. And those 30 tables I could flip several times a day. And in those 30 tables, I could make X amount of dollars. Well, now you might have 15 tables. And those 15 tables give you a portion of the revenue you need, but not the whole revenues. And so what do I need to do differently in order to change my business capabilities so that I can get back to some semblance of revenue? The other thing, we do a lot of work around the new employee capabilities, which is if you had a lot of staff in the restaurant who served tables all day. Well, now you have half the tables. So as you're hiring new employees, if you furloughed them or let them go or the employees aren't coming back, then you need to think about what does the new employee need to look like? Do I need more chefs? Do I need more expediters? Do I need more people to wrap food? What exactly do I need, and how do I need to make this restaurant look in order for it to thrive again? I just had a conversation with a client this morning, and he is a CFO, and that CFO just lost someone in their department, not physically lost, but they quit. And so we were talking about the fact that this is the perfect time to look at your whole department and think through how do you need to look at your department differently so that you can hire the right body in a new space, maybe even, or advertise for that new person differently. So our conversation is a lot, do you still need an X or do you need a Y now? And a lot of, in the chaos of it all, people just want the same people back, but maybe they don't have the capabilities or ability to do the work you're asking them to do. So that's something that we always need to think about. And then the new policies and procedures that need to happen. You know, it's kind of funny. Sometimes I watch TV and you see the Roto-Rooter guys say, now we're cleaning our hands and our equipment and putting boots on and all the things that they're doing to come into your home now. And I thought, shouldn't that have been a part of what they always did? And so as I sit and think about looking at everyone's new normal, which I can't stop because that's all the work I'm doing right now. I look at the TV commercials. I look at when I'm out and about. Even at Fry's, if you go through the Fry's counter, there's the line markings, and then there's the plastic things, and it's just amazing to think about how we're going to have to do things differently. But you have to look at the policies and procedures that you had in business as usual, and then have to look at it as how we tweak things quickly in business as unusual. And then now, how do I create some foundation in my new normal? Okay, we're going to give you a little work to do on your sheet of paper that's in front of you. But we've been talking about the restaurant example because it's easy. And what I want you to do is on your paper, I want you to draw 3 columns. I want you to draw business as usual, and this will start your thoughts around planning for the new normal. So business as usual. And then I'd like for you to think about 3 or 4 things that were in business as normal, as usual. And in this example, I wrote dining in, consistent customers, 80% dine in, 20% takeout, predictable income, predictable employees. And you might have another list of what was in business as usual. And think about things that you might be grieving right now, or wrote on your piece of paper earlier about how you were feeling about each one of those pivots that you were having to make. Now, business as usual, no dining in. They pivoted to the new environment by doing 100% takeout or curbside service. I was shocked to see that the bars were like filling drink orders and then bringing them out to the curb so you could take it home. But new signage, I've seen new signage all over the valley now. Come in, carry out, open now for seating, and then you walk into the restaurant and there's X's on tables. And I saw something on the news where they had bought a lot of mannequins and dressed them up and put them in between the tables so it would look fuller now that the tables were all spread out. Take more outbox. You have to order more takeout boxes. You have to have someone to fill those takeout boxes. Maybe you've hired more chefs in order to make sure that you can get the food out, the unpredictable income, repurposed employees. I call them repurposed. So you might take a dining server and now they're packing up all the food that needs to go out and running them out to the curb. So using this example in the chat feature, what would you advise a restaurant to do as they create the new normal? What kind of things would you say that this restaurant will, how this restaurant will change as they hit the new normal? So post a few things. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We were face to face and now we're all online, which is sad. Lots of outreach with people and businesses. There's no outreach. Yeah. Unless it's via Zoom. So here's some of the things that I thought about. Okay, more space between the tables. We know that that's going to be a reality. Waiters wearing a mask, which doesn't allow for us to see the facial features of that person, could impact their tipping. From the new norm, from the business as usual, what do you think the percentage is going to be between the dine-in and take-out? Is it going to be 50-50? What should an owner plan for? Increase advertising on social media, great. Explore outdoor opens that focus on space. Yep. Was really concerning yesterday. We were at a restaurant outside and they brought out the salt and pepper in the little plastic bucket and salt and pepper in there, and then they brought it out to the table, and I was thinking, do they have to discard that if they brought it to the table? And the lady came by and picked it up and put it on the next table. So I'm thinking, oh, that probably wasn't good. But there's going to be lots of those little things that are going to happen. So the policies and procedures and things and stuff are going to have to change. Now, it's your turn. So you have business as usual, and put 3 or 4 things in the business as usual column. And then 3 or 4 things in the business as unusual column. And then do some predictions on what's going to happen as the new normal comes in. And I'll give you a couple minutes for that. If anybody wants to post in the chat a little bit about one thing that they're going to do in the new normal, that would be great. They know what they're going to have to do. All right. This is how we help our clients. We help our clients think through creating the new normal and sitting down with them and really helping them understand it. And we create which I'd love for you guys to do after the session, you all to do after the session, but it would be great if you could sit down with a bunch of Post-its and write one thing that's in the new normal on each Post-it and have 10 or 15 Post-its. And then take those Post-its, and the goal is to plan and prioritize the new normal actions and activities. And that starts that strategic thought pattern in order to create the new business as usual, which is what you want to get to as soon as possible. And if you don't, as leaders in your organizations, begin to create that new normal, there's no one else who's going to do that. And you're going to be behind the curve when we get rolling here, whenever that is. Everybody's saying like July 1, June 1. So I'm hearing all kinds of dates out there. Please list any thoughts and questions you have in the chat feature. We're going to open it up for questions here in just a minute. If you're comfortable, again, post something from this session or a question in this session from this webinar. Go ahead and post that in the questions and answer section. And we left a bit of time here to open it up for questions of me or Valerie. We would love to be able to answer any questions that you have of us. Who has questions?
Dr. Lori, it's Bobby Zavala. I was just typing in the chat. So I answered your questions as business as usual and unusual in regards to school, if that's okay. I didn't do the restaurant.
That's fine.
Okay.
Tell us about what you're thinking.
Business as usual. We were, and you hit the nail right in the head. I hate to even use the word complacent, but you have to address what it is. You get accustomed to a student flow that is an even student flow of people coming in every day. There was a lot of interaction. That's one of the wonderful things about this job is that there's so much interaction with students of every race, religion, color, creed. It's really nice. A predictable population. We knew that they were going to be coming in. Some of the business as unusual was the complete opposite. No students coming in. Everything is online or a virtual type campus where we're seeing each other now. You can see a little bitty square of somebody, yeah, but that's it. There's a lot to be said about human interaction, a handshake, a hug. In the Latino culture, the hug is just that's it. It's you don't have that. The last portion, and I forget the thank you.
Call it the new normal.
Yeah, no, but you called it something.
Transformative change?
Transformative.
No, the next slide. I think it was the next slide over. Where you had the 3 columns, business as usual, business.
Oh, okay. And then the new normal, creating
the new normal. Creating the new normal, yes. Creating the new normal for us is what we're looking at right now is social distancing in class. You can no longer have a class with, say, 15 students. You might have to have 2 classes with maybe 6 or 7 students. What kind of masks? It's funny. We're all sitting here, but who has their mask handy? And obviously, we're not going to do it on the video. We're like a bunch of dorks. But we're going to have our students bring in masks, hand sanitizing, possibly even gloves if some people require those. So that would be creating the new normal.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then there's this whole psychology around the lack of hugging that we all go through, like this.
Oh yeah.
This place when we're not hugging other people, where we feel like we start doubting ourselves, having all these things. So it's really interesting, all the things that are happening right now.
Truly,
Yeah.
truly.
So thank you for sharing that with us. I think there's going to be a lot more. We're experiencing, instead of 2 professors in the classroom with 20 people, it's 1 professor with 10. How do we social distance them in a way that everybody's healthy? I just took my mother-in-law to the doctor yesterday, and we were at Mayo at 56th Street, and you walk in, and as soon as you walk in, you're in this line where you're 6 feet apart. and then you walk up to a table and they take your temperature.
Right.
And masks are mandatory, so it's very interesting right now. Who else wants to share? I saw, let's see. Jose, do you mind talking to us just a tiny bit about revamping the business model? If you're not comfortable, that's okay, but maybe a broad.
Yeah, that's
okay.
What I meant there, going back to your example for the dining, is just you have to like start with a new way of thinking whether you want to stay in business. I mean, really understand that less customers really is gonna, your operations still cost a certain amount of money. So realizing that you have less customers, the customer base is lower. Dining itself will change and become more expensive. It'll be less affordable for a lot of people. So the idea there is to really start from scratch and see what it really costs, who will your customers be, because it can't be the same way as it was. And so I just see that happening if we go to a 25% capacity or 40 or whatever capacity it is, that changes everything. I mean, the restaurant business is very, the margins are very thin. So any disruptions to that really puts restaurants out of business. So it's really a matter of what it's going to look like and just start from scratch. The dining experience, I just think, is going to be different for the customers, for the restaurants, for all the workers. And that's the way I guess I'm seeing, to start from the beginning and see if your business model works.
And I would agree with that. I think a lot of people are looking at their outdoor space right now and saying, can I take my tables from inside, move some outside? Is that going to be a possibility? Because do more people want to be outside? Or, I mean, there's 100 things to consider, but I think you hit the nail on the head with the idea that the margins are so thin that the planning has to happen so that, like you said, is our business going to survive, or how do we need to do this? Do we need to start becoming part grocery store in the corner? I don't know what it is, but it's going to happen. Good, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Anybody else want to share one or two things that they had on their list or ideas about restaurants? Valerie, can you talk a little bit about schools?
Yeah, so the school district that I'm working with right now, they're a rural district, and one of the things that they did immediately was they took 3 school buses and parked them at 3 different locations. And those 3 school buses had Wi-Fi and meals. They were serving breakfast and lunch. So between like 8 and 10, and then 11 and 1, whatever their hours were, they were making themselves available to feed anybody under 18, and having Wi-Fi, so that if a parent or a family needed to upload something or download something, or go to the bus and use internet, they had that available. And they quickly reached out to the education foundation that's associated with them and asked them for a very large $10,000 donation, which the foundation gladly approved. And they took that $10,000 and bought Chromebooks. And within 2 weeks, they were able to get 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This district does not have a high school. They tuition out their students. So those 4 grade levels had Chromebooks within 2 weeks. It was just amazing the way they were able to think outside the box. And it was just a level of, everybody has the chance to come up with suggestions. Nobody's suggestion was turned down. It was, throw out your ideas, let's see what we've got, and let's figure out if we can make them work. And they did. It was just amazing to see. And I think that this district can sustain this if this is what happens starting in the fall, if they have to remain online like they are. So pretty neat to see this district do that.
Thank you. You're also talking about as a mom. You're now mom, teacher, business owner.
Right.
It's just going on everywhere. In this has impacted every single person across the world. And we look at the same structure. Let me just give you this. We look at the same structure in your life, in your personal life. So anything we do is business related, but also if you looked at your life right now, business as usual is you as usual, coming in and out, working at your office, doing all the things you did. Business as unusual is the shift to go home and work or be furloughed or all the other things that had to happen. And then as you're looking at June, July, and August this year, I would encourage you not to just do this planning for your work or your business, but to do the same planning for yourself. And how are we going to create this new normal for us? Being proactive around this, which is so counterintuitive to our own human psychology, but this proactive planning actually allows us to step out when we're ready and be the best we can be for ourselves, for our employees, and for those who are around us. I posted, go ahead, Valerie.
So, sorry, don't mean to interrupt. One thing that I have noticed with a couple of the clients that I do have, and I've mentioned this to them, and after I've brought it up, they kind of sit back and go, you know, I didn't even think about that. They're overlooking how their staff are feeling, how their employees are feeling, in a sense that these employees are doing the job and they're doing it fantastic and they've adapted so well, but they're not asking them, how are you doing? They're looking at what they're doing and they're just assuming that their employees, that their staff are handling this quite well, when it's that what's the story where you see the duck on the water and the duck's super calm, but underneath those feet are swimming fast. That's what I'm seeing from third person. And so when I pointed that out to them, they literally were like, you know what, we need to do that. We need to reach out individually to our employees, you know, whether it's Zoom, phone call, text, hey, how are you? You know, you'll get that, oh, I'm doing fine, you know, thanks for asking. Well, counter back and say, okay, how are you really doing? And that, asking someone that as their leader, as the, you know, even just a peer, makes people feel not so alone. So that is one thing that I'm noticing and encouraging some of my clients to do.
Hi, this is Anne Marie. I just got on my computer, is charging, so sorry I can't show myself. I've been on the phone. But anyway, Valerie, I appreciate that comment because that's what I was going to contribute as far as, you know, the new, well, what we're doing right now. And with Timothy Radin in our group, Team Radin, from day one, Timothy has asked, what do we need? Asking of his team. We're a group of wealth managers at Northwestern Mutual. There's 5 of us on the team. And, you know, we work, you know, with and for Timothy, not Northwestern. So he's really shouldering a lot of responsibility for all of our livelihood. But he did not need to ask us day one, how are you feeling? What do you need? You know, and that kind of, as giving as he is, that still kind of puts a shock to you, like, wow, nobody really asked you that, right?
Right.
And as Latinas and Latinos, we just go to work, right?
Yep.
We go to work. We don't care if the sun, you know, the roof is falling in. We just grab a bucket, right? We just go. So I really appreciated that, and that's what I was going to contribute. I think that was a great point, is to make sure that we're all staying connected with each other's feelings. You know, I don't have children, animals, or spouses, or, you know, I barely have plants that I have to take care of, but my coworkers have spouses and little children at home. So when something gets missed, we just got to have each other's back.
Right.
So
right.
That pretty much is business as usual, but, you know, you still got to be a little more conscious of it. So I like that point that you made. That's what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Hello.
And as far as clients go in new business, I think it's actually makes it a lot more efficient. You don't have to wait for clients to come in, or, you know, oh, they got lost in traffic, or they lost on the elevator, or, you know, they log in or they're not. You know, they're either on the call in the Zoom call or they're not. You know within 2 or 3 minutes if they're going to be on the call. So we're able to service our clients, and as far as information that they need now, instead of wondering what next, we actually tell them what is happening now. Again, we're wealth managers, so our clients are very confident in their portfolios right now, and our job is to let them know where they stand with, you know, the last 4 legislation pieces that went, you know, in effect in the last 6 months. A lot of legislation regarding retirement, taxes, and this PPP. We give them the facts and the research. We just take action right now.
Hello.
Anne-Marie, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I said we give them the information that they need now to act on in confidence. They're confident that their portfolio is on the right track, you know, and that they've got the safety nets and the risk management that they needed for their business and their employees.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank
Hi.
you.
Somebody,
Yes, I'm sorry. This is Chef Michael Brown with Jamboree Catering Grill Express Food Truck, a 40-year veteran in the food industry. One of the things that really happened with me over this 2.5 months of being isolated was to figure out a solution for the industry. So I started a company called Dr. Food Costs, and one of the things that I think that the restaurants are going to have to do is they're going to have to go back to some of the basics. You know, the food cost management is probably the most controllable in terms of making sure you're profitable in your menus and things like that. You know, most restaurants don't change their menus every for a year or two, and their costs are going up and their prices are staying the same. So my philosophy is, hey, let's take care of the thing that steers the ship, which is like the rudder, and food cost management is that. So I started a company to help restaurants recover from COVID-19. And really it's going to be like a purging of who really wants to be in this business, who's passionate about being in this business, and who's passionate about having systems that are in place that can help them manage their business to a point of profitability with an average of 12 to 15% net income across the country. There's very little money to play with. But there's a lot of money to be found right there in their restaurants if you can manage food costs to a point where you minimize pilferage and you also maximize what you can, your menu analysis and things like that. If you maximize those things, you can actually pull a few more percentage points out of those net profits.
and those few percentage points could be the difference between success and failure.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing a lot of too. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's just such a relevant thing, and congratulations on starting a new business. That's very entrepreneurial of you. And feel free to use any part of this presentation we'll be sending out after to help you. And if you need our help, please let us know. But
Will do.
this is real life right now, and we're all living it. And I, even personally, professionally, we're all looking at what we were doing today and pulling out, as the chef said, pulling out those few percentage points out of our businesses, and those things that maybe we wanted our business to change and our employees didn't want our business to change. Well, this is the right time and the most ripe time to do that. To do any changes you want to do in your business, inject them now and emerge as the butterfly is from that cocoon as the new entity. With that, I'm going to return this back over to Elizabeth for her final. Oh, you know what? I missed a comment. Just a minute, Elizabeth. Jose says we were forced to be more technology savvy, and we've found that we will keep some of the virtual activities moving forward. And I think that's relevant in all businesses right now. There's going to be a point where lot of the folks are going to have an option of working from home or where they wouldn't have before versus what they were doing before this all happened. So thank you for that. Again, Elizabeth, I'm going to turn this back over to you for your closing thoughts and directions and things. I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Lori. This was very informational, and you know, we're all going through the same you know, thoughts and emotions, but you know, every little piece of advice works for us in order to keep moving forward. And thank you for everyone who shared your wonderful comments. I'm seeing here in the chat box, Angie's mentioned starting a social Zoom network among all business owners to support one another. And when the new business comes as usual, they're all united. So yeah, let's think of different ways we could, you know, pivot our businesses and, you know, create our new normal, as they call it. And last one from Anne Marie, that she has a food app for vegan and health, for health restricted menu orders takeout. So if you'd like more information on that, feel free to contact Anne Marie on the chat box. But thank you all for attending today's webinar. Just a final note, the Chamber, we're putting on webinars about every week. So, and then we also value your feedback. I know it's, we typically don't do weekly webinars. We almost always have done either bi-weekly or monthly events. So we appreciate your support, and we ask that you complete our post-event survey, which we'll be sending out along with materials from today's webinar. And we will have 3 lucky winners for this post-event survey. For those who completed, we have 2-hour consultations thanks to our friends at Y2 Collab. So Dr. Lori, if you want to go ahead and just briefly mention what that prize consists of, and we'll go ahead and wrap today's webinar.
Well, we'll make an appointment with you either at your location on Zoom, or we have our office where we can socially distance up in North Phoenix. And we would love to sit down and look at where you're at today, where you want to be, where you were. We call it the Ben RB. Where have you been? Where are you today? And where do you want to go? And we'll help you prioritize 5 or 6 things that you want to do and help you with a little action item list. So it would typically, for Valerie and I, to sit down together, it's a pretty substantial prize for whoever wins. And so complete your post-event surveys, and we would love to see you in our office.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you so much again, Dr. Lori and Valerie, for your time this afternoon. We hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. Let us know your thoughts on the post-event survey, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, and have a great Memorial Day holiday weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Lori, I'm going to reach out to you if that's okay.
Yeah, you have my phone number.
Yes, ma'am, I sure do. Pleasure meeting you.
Oh, you too. Talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye, Bobby.
Bye, everybody. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless.
Thank you.